A SuperMeta podcast episode. We're on episode 4.
Oh yeah.
We're on episode 4 with your host Gianna and Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig's here. So today we're shifting off of Game of Thrones. You know, despite killing 7 years of our lives or 8 years of our lives, we got to move on, man.
Got
You
to.
know, we just can't get on that train forever. But anyways, I think the topics for today are mainly going to be related to esports. You know,
Esports gaming.
that's right. Because what's sadder than fucking everybody wasting their life on a TV show? Kids ruining their lives over some clout.
Some clout.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So the first kid we got to talk about basically that sparked a lot of this controversy is FaZe Clan's Tfue, who came out with the idea that I guess it's not an idea, but he straight up said that FaZe Clan was basically giving him a slave contract, right? Taking insane percentages away from him,
yeah, they were
not letting
getting
him do certain
they were
things.
getting 80% of any branded video on like social media, which can be like Twitch, YouTube, and they were getting 50% of
Pornhub,
his touring
yeah,
or appearances. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
especially Pornhub.
especially Pornhub, yeah. So anybody who's probably listened to this part and stuck around probably knows what's up with Tfue. What's pretty recent was Tfue releasing the video on Twitter, which gave me two main points of insight. One, and he's doing this call to action for his fans with hashtag release the contract or some shit like that, where he wants FaZe Clan to show everybody the contract, right? And that way, they can raise pitchforks at FaZe Clan and all that good shit that's already happening. But I guess that's how Tfue wins. The other thing that really is pretty interesting is so there's an incident where Tfue's original complaint was saying how they basically hazed him and made him do like illicit things, underage things like drink and that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, all right. And
Yeah.
then and then there was other videos released of him just Tfue just doing this before he joined FaZe Clan, you know, being a dumbass on his own like kids are liking to do, right?
Hmm.
and then he calls out his lawyer in the video, and he's like, "I really didn't want this, but my lawyer insisted I keep it in, right?" And I'm just sitting here like, "Mate, dude, you gotta fire this guy. This guy is fucking incompetent as fuck." Like, what was he thinking the moment his lawyer was like, "Yeah, no, it's okay. Trust me, we'll keep this in." He's like, "No, no, man. I also drank without being in FaZe Clan." He's like, "No, the fans won't fucking know, dude. The fans won't call back to when you were popular or how you got popular." You know, I'm just like, okay, like first of all, Tfue, right? You gotta weigh your options, right? Who's robbing from you more, right? FaZe Clan or your fucking lawyer who's incompetent as fuck? You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, I think the first lesson for all the young aspiring esports kids out there is, dude, like you gotta vet your fucking lawyers. You can't go pick the fucking guy off the street
Yeah, but they're
because like
kids, right? That's kind of the problem with esports.
no,
You're gonna have
yeah,
a lot of young people getting into
that's
this
yeah.
very
Look,
quickly.
here's my problem with like, or not my problem. Here's the thing that kids have to do, right? Kids have some common sense, right? They're probably looking at like Tiffy was like, hey, I don't want pictures of me drinking, as part of the argument because I did that before, right? And then when that common sense part of it comes into play, and your lawyer says, no, dude, it's time to skip out on that guy. You know, it's time to say no. And I think the thing is like kids just for whatever reason they just don't grasp common sense. They feel passionate by like, oh, Face cheated me, so I'm just gonna listen to this moron who thinks it's a great idea to say that like Faze made me drink.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean there's a multitude of issues with that, but they're young, right? They haven't developed the ability to reason, right? The frontal cortex isn't completely finished developing. Like they're gonna make extremely rash and idiotic choices,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
like it's tough. It's tough. Like esports, I feel like this has happened throughout history in a multitude of sports. Is that the early years are like the fucking wild wild west where it's just like
yeah, for sure.
crazy shit's happening where people are trying to set and find the boundaries of what is this thing called esports. and it's
For sure.
growing and it's getting and it. I mean, and there's a lot of growth to it and a lot of the opposite of growth. There's a lot of death. Like some things pop up and disappear really quickly. It's a very volatile,
Right,
you
right.
know, system.
Yeah. That to me, when you think about that um, in the short term, how a game can like live and die within a few years, right? How professional gameplay and the player turnover rate, especially for a game like League of Legends, where players come in and like in a few years it feels like they're burning out, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. To me, um, I would say it's something that you don't typically get in real sports, and if you do get it in real sports, right, the compensation factor for basically like losing the functionality of your body within a few years because you've taken so many concussions on the head or whatnot,
Mhm.
right? Is like you get paid so much more. You get paid a lot
Yeah.
to put yourself at that risk, and with the current way esports is, I honestly like. I mean, face claim. You look at their contract or what people have, supposed it is. Tfue said it got leaked. Who knows? Who the fuck really knows? But the idea is like the sort of predatory contract, right? I feel like if I was in his position, I would have signed it just because there was some guarantee to money.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Exactly. It definitely makes sense. It's more of a greener pastures type thing. Like, yeah, it's a very predatory contract, and but like you said, like at that point, before he was anybody, he was just a normal dude. He was just a guy who played video games, and he got an opportunity. There was a contract put in front of him for him to make more money, and he signed it. It was a bad contract, but it was still positive at the time for him.
right?
I saw a lot of
Exactly.
the issue was that someone was saying that apparently it was supposed to be a 6 month contract that like automatically extended for 2 years that didn't allow him to get out of it if he blew up or whatever.
Sure.
So, and it's just what happened. He outgrew FaZe he on Twitch. I mean, it's a lot of. I think that this could have been done a lot better. I think that FaZe could have worked out something with Tfue to like change his ratios because he got so big
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
made him happy and made themselves look good. But
Right.
clearly,
Right.
greed on both sides has
Yeah. Exactly.
undermined the whole
Exactly.
deal.
Exactly. Yeah. I think FaZe's main argument is, hey, like we tried multiple times to contact Tfue and tell them about this. I don't think that changes the fact that the initial contract was super predatory and that
Exactly,
they just
exactly.
kept rolling with it, right? I think FaZe loses this one, even though Tfue's dumb. And what can you learn from this? Like, it's like one, don't hire a shitty lawyer who has no idea what's going on.
But do you
But
know, like, I mean, like when you go to hire a lawyer, I mean,
well,
are you,
well, I mean, he releases a statement, right, and you sign off on it, and like you as like an 18-year-old, it's like Faith made me do this illegal thing, but I did it while I wasn't under Faith, and I've been video documented doing it. Like, just leave that shit out. Just leave that shit out. Like that's like the job of a the job of a doctor, and there's this like popular like meme that's like, don't confuse your Google search with my like medical degree. When you go
hmm
to the doctor's office, you hire people looking up stuff on WebMD, right?
yeah.
It'd be like you go to a lawyer and you like tell them like, hey, don't release this really bad statement, like it doesn't look good, you know and then the lawyer's like, oh, don't confuse your personal individual opinion with my law degree, right? That works for the most part. But if some dude goes into like the doctor with a massive brain tumor and the doctor's like, I don't worry about it, that's what Tishu went through, right? He was like, there's a very blatant hole in the logic here. Don't do this. And the lawyer was like, fuck it, man. Let's just publish this shit anyways. You know,
Yeah.
that's like, I think one of the big problems in esports is there's probably not even like really good lawyers in the field. There's good lawyers for the big companies, because they have the money, they can hire an actual lawyer, right? But what are these young people supposed to do? There's no pro bono, is that right? For
hmm
free. There's no
Yeah.
for free lawyers or like cheap lawyers who actively look over contracts and make sure that nobody's getting fucked, or at least the player isn't getting fucked. But it's a complicated issue.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's tough all around, and it just shows how dirty and grimy esports is right now without any like governing body. You know what I mean? Like for a lot of like the bigger sports, there's a organization above it all that
Right,
kind of
right.
holds it all accountable and puts like
Yeah,
different rules
there's
enforced, but
player organizations too, right? That are meant to protect the players and mutually protect players from both bigger organizations and from like one another and that sort of thing, right? There's a lot more infrastructure in legal infrastructure in professional sports compared
yeah,
to these. Yeah,
exactly. They have their own like what you would I see as like a union for the players.
right,
And like, and what's crazy is if anyone, especially if they're listening to this, you probably play video games enough to know that video games are fleeting, especially in popularity, and especially for something like
oh
esports. Like, for something to hit the golden level of like esports, it has to like legitimately blow up. And you think about how many games come out in a year's time, and how many of those go on to be successful esports for like a long amount of time. There's not very many. So for someone to pour a lot of time and effort into a game, they and then commit to an organization like FaZe. I mean, like FaZe is going to make money regardless because FaZe is an organization that's going to have their fingers and their toes dipped in everything, right? They're going to be following what's hot. But
right,
these kids, they're going to dedicate themselves, or they're going to have like a natural talent in a type of game that their lifespan, like for a career, is going to be very short. It can be like everyone's always said that about Ninja, right? Like he's good at Fortnite, but trashed everything else. And when Fortnite's done, he's done. But like he
right,
obviously capitalized on it, and with all the money
right.
he made.
No,
But
for
like
sure.
these other kids, like Tfue, like he should have been making good money on his own effort, his own skills, but he ended up in this contract that was obviously predatory, and he's
Right,
lost 80% or so of his earnings of him putting in the work and grinding on a game that it's Fortnite. It's already, from what I understand, it's on a downswing. People say it's the unhealthiest it's ever been. It's not enjoyable. People are,
right,
pushing
right.
away from it. So that
Yeah,
career, that lifespan, if this happens, like we're looking into the future, this is a what if situation. If Fortnite continues to spiral downward and decrease in popularity, and Tfue never finds another game where he can continue drawing large numbers in, and he dwindles as well, then like this is a huge, huge issue for him. He sees all this money he could have potentially made over this short span of time just evaporated. He had like his future is a lot less limited. That's just a what if situation. He could move on.
yep,
I don't know.
yep, yep. I mean, no, all great points. If you're like a young esports pro, I think what needs to be told to you is like, hey, carefully like check out what your game is, right? Like that's one. It's just like figure out what the hell your game is, right? And like see if like does it have like any competitive mode? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If somebody else makes the same game with different things in it, right? Different characters, different time zone, like time period, like a different era, but the same game, like a battle royale. Is it going to be is it going to be a problem for you later on, right? If that game becomes more popular, right? What does the company who owns the game, what are they doing to like really establish or secure this game's longevity? And if like you have no good question or no good answers to these questions, right? It's just time to like milk your like 15 minutes of fame for as much as possible,
I
right?
agree. And try to diversify, like build yourself a brand if you can, but like I don't know. You have like the whole 90-10% kind of rule as far as like those 10% of people are going to just explode in popularity and the other 90 are just going to be, background players. It's
Yeah,
tough. I don't know. Tfue, I think it's ultimately both sides fucked up big time, and there is definitely a way where they both could have came out in the positive and it could have just worked out for everyone.
right,
But
right. No,
I don't know the behind the scenes stuff, but it just someone wasn't budging.
right, right. I mean, I'm gonna assume it's Face Clan who wasn't doing the budging part
Yeah.
because if you're just a kid and you're like, hey, I don't want to do these, things that you told me to do, and they're just like, too fucking bad.
Yeah,
Sign the
like
contract. They probably believe, and for good reason, that they're protected by law, right? Not you,
yeah,
'cause,
and this goes back a long time, as far as before esports, when gaming was getting a little more popular and YouTube was growing, and there was a little YouTube channel called Machinima. I'm
Hmm.
sure they're still producing things now, but they're not at the pinnacle like they used to be. They were
Right.
like the quintessential media outlet for new gaming and like what you would back then you would consider pros like for Call of Duty 4
Yeah.
and Halo 2. Like these were
It-
the people who were making quality videos, but apparently as time moved on and a lot of the original content creators left and then eventually started talking about it, um, it was not good.
oh
Like
yeah.
their contracts were just as bad and they were put under office hours. These people were coming into work at the Machina
Uh,
offices and required to stay there and make content while working, whereas opposed these like, these streamers are just working from home.
right.
And
In a way, that's like I think I mean, well, they were like one of the first, right? So they naturally
oh yeah,
fell into that, like, you should just be working 5,
yeah.
which, in retrospect, it was a terrible idea, but it makes sense when from that perspective. I think what people, not necessarily what people, but what's probably helpful to realize about that sort of situation is it's probably not going to happen again. The 9 to 5,
Oh yeah,
like
for sure, for sure.
you're not going to be like told like, hey, you got to be in it this time and only this time.
Yeah.
I think Twitch streaming, if you just think about what it is right now, has basically been, it is like a 9 to 5 job, except for like you control your own hours, but you better be streaming like every fucking day,
Oh yeah, you
right?
need to have a consistent schedule for sure.
Right. Yeah. You can't afford to miss, right, a day,
No.
because people, you lose money, you lose views, right? So
Oh yeah.
I remember I'm a Cutie Pie League of Legends streamer, was hitting it big. He was streaming on days when he was sick, like fucking like about to like looks like he was about to collapse over and shit. He was still streaming, right? Because I think he realized like there's only so much fame you can extract from the system and so much money before
Exactly.
before it goes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a hard life, and it's probably a pretty fucking like lonely life too, because you're just there in front of your computer, bunch of
Yeah.
shitholes being like, "You suck."
I'd imagine it's extremely stressful. Like that's one of the things I've had to get over when it first started blowing up with Twitch is that I always felt like a twinge of jealousy. Like, oh man, these guys get to sit there and play games all day and they're like bitching about it. But when you really think about it, some of these guys are streaming 6 days a week and they're streaming usually 8 hours, sometimes more.
Right.
So they're putting in a lot of time, and they're also having to make sure they're on top of what's latest, having to keep, a community managed, and depending on how big they get, they're gonna have to start, dealing with a manager and social media outlets and
Yep.
stuff like that. So it's and you gotta always they always have to be on guard about their personal image as well because when you're streaming it's not like making a YouTube video. You can make a YouTube video and be secretly super racist or homophobic and no one would ever know because of the magic of editing. But with Twitch, you are live. Like what
Right.
you say is cemented and that's what happened to PewDiePie, right? Like this guy making all these YouTube videos and he was huge and then like he was like, you know what, Twitch is blowing up. Let me diversify. He gets into Twitch and all of a sudden he's playing PUBG, he gets killed and the famous
Yeah.
PewDiePie N-word,
Yeah.
like it happens and so like I'm surprised he rebounded as well as he did, but I think he
I,
was
I,
very
I think the problem with, I mean, it's not. I guess it's not a problem, but I think the thing about being racist or whatever is, how would you say it? There's seems like people just don't care after some point, right? As
yeah,
long as you don't just continuously exhibit like super anti-black behavior or something like that, nonstop,
yeah.
people just forget and they're just like, okay,
And you
you
have
know,
to imagine, I mean, this is pure speculation from me, but the vast majority of it, like their viewer base is probably like a middle-aged white male, like teenage to middle-aged, you
right,
know, white male. So
exactly,
so stuff like that wouldn't impact him. But yeah,
right.
that honestly shocked me with the whole PewDiePie situation and that, now
Yeah,
he's
since then, Twitch has taken that sort of stuff more
but he doesn't
seriously.
even do Twitch anymore. Like he
I
stopped after
know,
that. Like he realized
I
he
know,
fucked
but
up.
they banned some people. They banned some people from Twitch for supposedly saying it, but
Well,
like
they just
actually
speaking of
watched them.
that, they just banned a bunch of people on the World of Warcraft Twitch for saying Nagas because from World
Oh
of
yeah,
Warcraft there's that the
yeah,
species the Nagas the snake people and a
yeah.
lot of people just got banned like a huge
Je-
slew of like streamers
Jesus. Yeah, I mean,
uh, That reminded me of that.
That's, I mean, technically not the same word, but there was the
Oh yeah, for
implication
sure.
there.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, someone was. There were probably a bunch of false reports. That's just
Yeah,
crazy. I just had read that today. That just happened.
that's man, that's a good one. There was a band from like TF who didn't really say the N word. Like he said idiots, but like it sounded like he put like an N sound in front of it.
Mm.
But if you like slow it down, I don't think it really sounds like
What
that,
did
right?
what
And
did XQC say? Didn't he have something similar to that? You
I
know,
have no. He got
the
banned from Overwatch League
yeah,
too,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah. That's what I'm saying.
straight
It
up,
was
just like yeah. But like so,
his team
Blizzard
kicked him off.
is doing the safe space thing, like sure, right? They're like they don't let you like use like taunts and stuff anymore either, right? In the game or like certain
Really?
sprays. Yeah, yeah, because like certain or not certain no not certain sprays. Sorry, in the chat in the all chat or whatever, you can't use certain like
Oh, you can't do like GG easy or something like that.
yeah. I don't think it's GG. It's something that was like racially insensitive
Okay.
or could be construed as racially
I got
insensitive.
you.
Who really knows? That league is dead, and Blizzard introduced Nagas, so
That's
they
right.
obviously don't care anymore.
Man. So yeah. So Tfue esports contracts, money, it's all going to be predatory. The lesson you should learn is get on Twitch, stream every day, screw your life, your social life. You might make
Yeah,
it, you might not.
I think that was already I think that was already the lesson, right? Like if you're not a very attractive person who can just like have the same fans regardless of what games you play, which
Mm,
is pretty hard,
that's a
right?
can of worms. But yeah, yeah.
That I mean that's some kind of worms, but it works. And some people who are very attractive do play games well. So it's not like just like uh sexualizing yourself or
hmm
whatever.
I'm trying to
Um,
think of the biggest Twitch streamers. I think like like Ninja's probably like the most moderately attractive. Like I think most people who are really big on
well,
Twitch
I'm just talking about
don't.
the esports, the girls, the e girls,
Oh.
like Pokemon who
Oh yeah,
Pokemon.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
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 that's also a tough can of worms.
yeah. So like like she was like in league, but then she like went out of league for a while, and like she still basically had the same number of views, right? Because I don't think people are following her for the excellent gameplay that she's delivering, but she's not like the worst of the worst.
Yeah, but
You
she
know?
also lives in a house with a bunch of also moderately popular Twitch streamers, which helps
Yeah,
a lot. Tremendous. You get a lot of like I don't know what the word for it is, but like a cross viewers or whatever they call that. Like
yeah.
a
Oh
lot of people
yeah,
are watching both of
yeah.
your stuff.
Get me in that fucking house. I'll be fucking. I'll
That's
be
what you
I'll
gotta
be
do,
the
man.
I'll be the controversial dude, the dude who just like actually says it like it is.
See,
Be
you
like,
wouldn't be the controversial dude though. You'd be the guy
no,
everybody likes. I would be the
I would.
controversial dude.
No,
I mean,
I would probably try to shift my persona so that I'm the real controversial dude, like on camera. But like when
but
people come
everybody
on
likes you
camera, I'm
because
just
they
like
can
super
tell.
nice. Yeah, just like what the hell? Yeah, I just want people to like come up and like get ready to like fucking wreck me, and then I'm just like, hey, what's up, man? Like, it's really nice to meet you. I appreciate it. I
Uh,
appreciate you watching. They're like, what the fuck?
but
This guy called Pokemon a bitch. Get him. Yeah,
I think esports is interesting. I honestly can't tell you if I think it's going to be successful or not. I think it'll always be around in some form or another because like
yeah,
gaming in general is never going to really go away. It just will just
right.
shift maybe to full
There,
VR.
there, I think what would likely happen is there could be like some sort of like semi correction to the infrastructure. Right now, a lot of venture capital's coming in. They're pouring in a ton of
They
money.
really are surprisingly.
We're getting some big sponsors, right? But like if the money runs dry, if the money is gone, and there's nothing to show for it, we're not getting like Coke is not making money off of like esports.
Yeah.
Like these PC platforms or like PC makers aren't making any money, right? Then it's kind of like okay, why should we keep sponsoring this garbage, right? So there probably needs to be how do you say it? It needs to be adjusted to a point where the salary is not super inflated. And I think it's slowly going that way. League of Legends, when the first couple of years, when it was like getting into the permanent partnership or like the franchising level, salaries were so inflated. It was like that was the time to get in because even if you're fucking hot garbage, like a lot of these players were, right? You're just getting paid like mega bucks, dude.
Interesting. Is that just because they didn't at that time they really hadn't set a value on players? They just like
Right,
were like, yeah,
exactly.
let's just give them a lot of money and they'll just like dive into it head first.
Yeah, there's no wage minimum or really okay. So there was a wage minimum, which was like $10,000 a split, and there's 2 splits in a year. So you can get like 20,000 if you play like every single game, right? As a player, right? Which is incredibly low for somebody who has to work and live in a team house. You know, you're basically living the dream for almost free, right? You earn a little bit of that's about it. And but like then there was a team called Immortals, which came in with a bunch of venture capital money, and they were like, 100K, 200, 300K, millions on their like best players, and as a result, everybody else was just like, well, I want this much, otherwise
Exactly,
I'm
and that's
going to
usually what
fucking Immortals.
happens. You see it
Yeah,
in
exactly, because
sports
they're like,
now.
I'm just better than this Immortals player. Like, I
Yeah,
would
they're
just
like,
go to them
what?
for like
I'm way more
6 times.
valuable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then all the salaries got inflated, and then they're getting deflated now because people realize, when you're like, the 50th player out of like 50 players in the league, you don't deserve to be paid insane buku bucks for being fun garbage.
Yeah, that's kind of a
Very
pride
little.
check, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that's all there probably
yeah.
needs to just be like, are there salary caps? There probably isn't, right? Like,
No, there isn't, right? But
right? So
there
that's a
should be. There
problem.
should
Yeah,
be. There
yeah.
should be because
So I'm
the
saying,
infamous saying that they say in regular sports is the salary cap is not there to prevent uh, you know players from being taken advantage of by the orgs, right? But it's to
no.
protect players from themselves.
Well, it's mainly for I don't think the word I'm looking for is diversity. It's a different word, but it's basically to keep the league at a almost even footing, so no one
Right.
organization can just be completely dominant. Because then you won't have enough buy-in for people to support other teams. There's
Right.
no reason to
Exactly.
support a
Exactly.
team that's just
Exactly.
gonna get shit
Yeah.
stomped.
Yeah. Correct. It
So
prevents the league from like imploding into money, right?
yeah,
When they can't afford to. Yeah. And I think that really does need to happen. I mean, I would say league. Admittedly, I don't follow a lot of the other esports franchises, but I would say league is the one that's like set up in the most stable way, where you have standard league games, you have international competitive tournaments, a world championship, and each one of these leagues is also salaried to a point if you're playing, right? So it's
hmm
it's the most that's like a traditional sports league. The only
yeah,
difference is like the pay doesn't make any sense, right? Or some people are still getting paid a ton. Some people are getting paid nothing, right? But like the performance between like some of the new players who are performing really well are getting paid like shit, and then some of the veterans who are just like known for their like pedigree or what have you, but aren't
yeah,
performing. They're like, okay, I'm making like 80 times as much as this dude who's
yeah.
wrecking me in the game right now.
So
So I don't.
we can both agree that the first thing esports needs to do to be like legitimized in our eyes, like to be moved from a little more than a hobby to a real thing would be to have a governing body. Like needs to be instilled. There needs to be some organization that sets up a doctrine of laws, like and rules for what is going to happen within things. And obviously they can be case by case. They could have them separately for each gaming platform or whatever. But
Right.
I'd imagine that's what needs to happen for esports. But how do you do that? That's like how do you who chooses that? Games are so fickle and so fast. It's like who's
Right.
gonna take up
I
that
think I
mantle?
think I think there needs to be like an infrastructure overhaul for that to happen. It can't directly mirror sports, right? Because sports like football, how long has it lasted? Fucking forever, right? Baseball, basketball, these
Yeah.
sorts of things, right? Like that greatness, like if you recall like Michael Jordan's legacy, like people still know it to this day,
hmm
and like people younger than us still know it. Like they know about his shoes and all that sort of thing, right? It exists because like that infrastructure was the sports infrastructure was set up in a way that was really, how would you say it? It was in a way that made that longevity last, right? And the lack of the internet made it so that people couldn't just keep inventing new sports and being like, all right, it's time to play this like variation of basketball. It's almost the same except for it's like 2 balls and like four nets or something. Like
Yeah,
something that's like
yeah.
ups, like that's like fucking patch notes level, right? Like we're like
That does
just
happen with football. There's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
I guess yeah,
leagues.
no, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
They
but it's
they
like
they
it's
fold
it's
really
like it's
quickly.
like the intense level of patch notes where you're just like, okay, now there's like 16 balls and like 2 goals, and it's like it would just be fucking chaos, right? Um,
And you would
But I
think
would
that
say,
gaming has it easy because they don't have to deal with TV contracts or any viewership or whatever time slots. They're online. So
right,
your ability to digest them is so incredibly easy. You just go to Twitch and you can watch it for free, or you can go to YouTube and watch it whenever you want for free. And it blows my mind that someone out there with enough investment capital hasn't just been like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll be that guy. I'm going to start up this organization
yeah,
and they're going to govern this and we're just going to make all the fucking money that's over gaming
yeah.
because gaming's so big now. It's just so
I
huge.
Yeah, when if, if we're like people with a lot of money, when if you're coming into the scene as a venture, you got a ton of money, right? What's probably not on your mind is like, hey, let me take over this whole fucking, because Riot Games has their hand on the balls of League of Legends, right? And
Hmm.
like, so you're not really gonna get away with trying to change that or trying to modify it or make it your own, right? And then you look at all these other games; they're all owned by different companies. And so I think what happens is you come in with your money and you say, well, I can't really, take over this whole fucking platform, but I can be in this, right? I can milk this money for when it's starting. Because if this is the next sport, right? If this is the future or what have you, and I get to, I get to be in on the ground level, right? When it's cheap, then I'm just going to take advantage of that, right, as fast as possible, right? That means like then the venture capital part, the capital gaining part actually makes sense, right? You will make money in the future from this, from
Yeah.
putting money into it now. I think the responsibility is like it just doesn't make sense because like the games evolve too fast, right? If League of Legends was the first one to set up like these rules about like how often you have to play, your amount of play time, and then Battle Royale comes in and it makes no sense because your play time correlates with how good you are in the game, right? If you die in the random like in the game, you know, okay, you're dead,
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like,
but
like you're
but it
out for
would
the
work.
tournament or
But I
what.
mean, it would work in the sense that like for college football, yeah, the NCAA is what is the main governing body, but
Yeah,
they have subsets of organizations underneath them because in college football, each college is divided by tiers like D1, D2,
yeah,
things like that, and then within those, they're even subsectioned into like conferences like the ACC and the
right,
SEC, and they have different rules. So you just have like a branching organization down, and it works. I mean, you have these different like so you have a college, right? So you can take a
yeah,
college, and that college has its own set of rules for things they do with their football team, and then I mean, obviously, I have to. There's it's like state and federal law. Like you have to follow both of them, but you also can like wherever there's leeway, you can do things certain ways. And it would work for
sure,
gaming that way. You would have this organization that sits above gaming, and then underneath it you would have this umbrella of like maybe you genre into different style of games like MOBAs or something like that. And then below that I have an umbrella of the games that are popular because at any certain time there's not that many games that are popular enough to have an esport. Like right now, what do you have? You have League, you've got Dota. I'm assuming they get pretty decent numbers. Dota 2,
yeah, yeah,
CS:GO is like the kind of
yep,
like the
yeah.
marquee. Um,
I think
Fortnite.
it would all work if skill in the game correlated like the way that that collegiate it worked in collegiate, right? So in collegiate, you come in from the college level, right, and you're probably not like hard NFL level, right? You don't you when you're a freshman in college and you first join the football team, you're probably not playing every single game. You're not the dude carrying super hard,
Hmm.
right? I mean, sometimes you are, but like you're usually not the dude carrying it super hard, right?
And that's what you do.
And
You can foster a system, right? That's the
yeah,
idea is that
so
like high school goes to
League of
college.
Legends, yeah, League of Legends is kind of doing that. They have junior teams now in addition to academy, right? So academy is like the lesser players, and like there's the junior team who are like kids who aren't even like old enough to really legally play, right? But the problem is you're going to run into the in League of Legends there's Faker who is insane, right? He was like immediately as soon as he started playing the game, people were like, all right, this dude's like the best,
And
right?
that's yeah, exactly. And that's
Was the best, but he was 15 when he came in, right?
hmm
And so like, how much longer do you need to develop that guy for? You should put him in a team right away because he's gonna fucking smash it, right? He's like gonna be like it'd be like if some kid in high school or whatever was like already Michael Jordan and they're just like fuck it, Get
Yeah,
this kid in the
and
NBA,
that's a
right?
huge debate in college sports because in college basketball they only have to play 1 year before they can go pro, and
Yeah,
in football they have to be there for 3 years. And that's a huge argument. It's like like you have some guys who come out of high school who are
yeah,
insanely talented and they call them NFL ready, and they're ready to play football, and they say like it's not fair these dudes have to go to school for 3 years
yeah,
not getting paid with risking injury. And I agree.
yeah.
I think for esports, they could just set up already pre-existing
Right.
infrastructures. Go ahead and like set up clubs in high schools. Like already like go to like if you want to go to Europe or you want to go to the U.S., Canada,
Yeah,
you can easily have these like clubs that can be set up where they can meet and play games, and then their results are uploaded through online because they're through matchmaking, and then they can play in high school, have these organizations in colleges, people can have little like clubs or whatever in college, and you have this feeder system where because like I think the biggest thing is
yeah,
for gaming is like you were just saying, Faker came in and it was obvious that he was so much leagues better than the next best player. Is that because there are people out there who aren't getting exposed to gaming? That there are people out there who have probably never touched League of Legends who would possibly be one of the best players ever because they haven't been
mhm,
given that exposure. And so if you look at like try to set up an infrastructure where you're getting all these people exposed to the gaming and you're getting your best players, and all of a sudden esports is like you have all these people who would have maybe never seen it before, have now seen it, are playing it, and they're so good, and your level of competition rises and rises to where
yeah,
people are going wild. Like CS:GO managed to do that. Like CS:GO has all these incredible players, and like NA for the longest time, North America was made fun of, always called NA
yeah.
AIM, made fun of us because we just like weren't fostering players, and there wasn't enough
Just
people like doing it or
just like League
whatever.
of Legends, dude. It's
Yeah,
just like League of Legends.
and
Yeah,
like so if you get enough people to see it, experience it, to play it, then you'll have a larger pool of talent and you'll be able to get the best players and you'll be able to like root for people who are local from your
right.
state
I
or
mean,
your country.
so the this like this all like makes sense because I think that's what everybody wants, right? They want to see the best players playing, and they want a system that develops talent for those who are less developed, right? Who might be the best in a few years, but time
Exactly.
to, right? The thing that's actually happening usually is when you have somebody who's really really good though, right? They just get pulled up in esports, right? They just like they bypass everything because you don't if you're being offered $1 million contract when you're 15, there's no need for like school, right? It's just
Exactly. Yeah, you just
such
take
a
it.
different world, right? So you can't like, but when you're like 15 years old and you're a really good basketball player, right? You're gonna get stomped in the NBA, right? You're just physically not even developed to the point of where you can
Well,
you
it
can go start
depends. I
pro
mean,
games.
15 for sure, but like
Yeah,
19
I
is
mean,
20.
just in general, right? Like,
Yeah.
just the general idea is like, if you're like 13 and fucking making every single shot, like, they can't just like throw you in.
But that's also because like the physical limitations of like a physical sport like basketball, being able to jump high and run fast,
Yeah,
takes time to develop. People can be really good at games by 13. Like they can be,
right.
which
No, no,
that
for
one
sure.
kid's like 12 years old apparently. He's underage playing for FaZe.
Yeah, yeah. That's, I mean, that's classic phase, but that happens. That happens in League of Legends. I just think if you take this current standard approach to to getting good players in, developing good players. It doesn't work for the exceptional players because teams will have their eye on the exceptional player as soon as that person enters the fray,
Yeah.
right?
So I guess you
And
do like soccer, right? And you have like the Premier League and you have like
yeah,
lesser
you could do
leagues,
that. You could do that. You could do that.
which would kind of
I
suck
think
because you're really diversifying your viewership and like you're probably like bleeding your like the lower
they
leagues.
do it. They do it in Europe for League of Legends already. They have like country-based like leagues and whatnot, which is basically equivalent to the academy teams, but
And
like
see, that
each
would work. That's a good idea too. Is like having local leagues, like have like a U.S. circuit, right, for a
right.
game, like take League of Legends, and there's a
I
bunch
think
of
I think
U.S.
League of
teams.
Legends is the closest to getting it right, but even now, if Faker comes up in North America and he's insane, it's over, right? The owners will fucking kill each other for this kid.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you just play in your circuit. It doesn't even matter your nationality, but you play in a circuit or whatever, and then you take like your best team of that region who belong to the U.S. and then you send them to like world championships and stuff like that, and you give people
Sure.
to root because that's what happens in CS:GO, which is why I think it's so extremely popular is that like people go and they root their nationality, right? Like when
Right.
France
Yeah.
is doing well, people are like, oh wow, like awesome, like my country's doing well, and
Right.
like that kind of brings in extra support and viewership, and it's a good way to sell merch. I
Yeah,
mean, if you start doing
it
that,
works. It works. It works for Europe for sure. It's a maybe for NA. I think NA is just for League of Legends. I think League has the most like developed infrastructure. I mean, they constantly have people trying to develop it. The problem with NA is like it's the meme region, right? Like we're the non tryhard region. We don't give any fucks, et cetera, et cetera. So that in and of itself is probably like something that would hold NA back. And in Korea, they're already doing this basically, right? They find the kids on solo queue ladder who are the best. They bring them to gaming houses while they're still in high school, and they develop them, right? Faker is an anomaly because like League of Legends in Korea was just getting big at that time when Faker came up, right? And so I think there's a pathway in, and we're all trying to work on the infrastructure. But meanwhile, we're trying to not get into the FaZe clan thing where like, some dumbass 14-year-old prodigy is like, yeah, you're gonna give me 100K a year just to like play solo queue, and they're like, yeah, and then when you get 15, you're gonna play for us, That's the sort of thing. It's just like when you get to 15 and you're like a god, right? Like teams will fucking bend over backwards for you. So you
hmm
shouldn't sign this like 3-year contract or whatever. Yeah, I would say man, how do we get League of Legends or how do we get esports into the mainstream? Right, it's just a bunch of trial and error.
I
And,
agree. I absolutely
Overwatch,
agree.
Overwatch was a huge trial, and
Jeez, we could talk
and
about
like
that for forever. Of the Owl
yeah,
League, or well, I guess it's the Overwatch League to
like
the.
but like the thing is like we don't want it to fail, right? Because if it fails, right, like it's just a huge blemish on like the big esports thing because they're like hyping it. They put so much money into it. Venture capitalists put so much money into it. They went
So
through like
much.
like assigned like each team has like its own region,
Yeah.
even though like doesn't matter the region. It's all like 50 Koreans now or whatever.
Yeah,
But like
Blizzard canceled like multiple other projects to focus on Overwatch.
and then like it's kind of not the place that
No,
people want to play. Yeah,
Overwatch has been dead for a while, and it's only being propped up by the vast amounts of money they're pushing into the
right,
Owl. Like,
right, for
wow.
sure. I wonder if you ask like any of the players, like, "Hey, do you like playing this game?" They're probably gonna be like,
You're like,
"Oh,
no.
fuck."
And I remember we had this conversation years ago when, like, maybe I guess 2 years ago. When did the Owl start? Was it
Yeah, probably
probably
two
two
years.
years ago? I remember when we actually had that conversation together about it. We are talking about it, and like it's weird because my rational brain at the time was like, yeah, I want this to succeed because I want esports to become a thing because I love gaming and that would be awesome for the culture. But then I don't know why, but I also always really wanted the owl to fail because at that time I was just getting out of Overwatch. 'Cause I've been playing Overwatch just like
Yeah,
competitively, not professionally, but competitively, and I just wasn't enjoying it. I didn't
right,
enjoy a lot of the choices they had made on things, and I had a
right.
lot of issues with the game. And
Yeah,
so it was weird. It was like on one hand I really wanted to see, on the other hand I was like, no, please fail miserably because it's awful. This game's
right,
not a good
right.
representation. But
Yeah,
that was just me being selfish.
it's the game itself is probably not what we want to represent esports. All these weird decisions that are like pro focused, but like I think it takes a lot of the fun out of it for most players. It's the
Yeah.
way the game ends up getting shaped up. Um, I mean, we can just say that it's a fail by now, but
Yeah, I think I don't
we
think we
don't
can put the
want we,
stamp on it, but I mean,
yeah
it's
we
obvious.
just can't publicly go out and tell venture capital like it's a fail, like because they're gonna be like, what the fuck you talking about? You
And it
spent
sucks because didn't
billions on this
like
shit.
Mark
Yeah,
Cuban bought a team. He's an NBA owner. Like, I mean, people really were like, yeah, this is
he's
it.
just a garbage businessman.
It's like Blizzard made all the right decisions except they chose Overwatch, right? Like Overwatch was a fine game, but it was just not the game.
I mean, I don't think it was meant to be played like the way.
I think that's what they were going for. I think they were genuinely shooting for an esports game. I think that was like
You didn't think they were just doing it for funsies and people were
no,
wanting it to
nah,
be.
because it was like it was a canceled project. I think it was called like something Titan or whatever, and they used the resources of that game to make Overwatch. And then that's when they realized, hey, we can make because they were pretty early on showed they wanted it to be an esports game. They had a Blizzard went above and beyond with that game to like to ensure its success and hopefully longevity. But from what I've heard, there's already rumors of them working on Overwatch 2, which is weird. It's just super weird because the game
I
visually
mean,
is not
I,
is
thi- I think, I think,
stylized.
I think you got. I think you should. I think it's actually the right call, honestly, because uh, Overwatch right now as a game is just like it's just kind of like okay, whatever. Like I don't really give a fuck, right? Like nobody cares if the game's dead.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
but
dead.
like
It's honestly
if they're
dead.
like bring out Overwatch 2 and they're like this is just like a more fun, more balanced version of Overwatch. Everybody's gonna oh, very cool. Like give it a shot, right? And I think they're working on Diablo 4. They can make that
Yeah.
an e-sport of some sort. I mean,
I
it's better than Diablo Mobile. Like the Diablo Mobile is just there to lower everybody's
You don't
expectations.
have
Like,
phones? What do you mean?
yeah, you don't have phones?
You guys don't have
Yeah,
phones? Diablo Mobile.
yeah. I mean, dude. I mean, I love Diablo. I mean, I
I
love
agree.
Diablo.
I
So
same,
like,
same.
like when I'm thinking about it, I'm just I'm hoping Diablo 4 is not shit. Anyways, and if there is a competitive esports side to it, I think it'd be cool to see. It doesn't have to be like PvP or anything. It could just be like, here's a dungeon, you start with nothing. You got a race or whatever.
Yeah.
As like Path to Exile or Path of Exile does. Yeah,
Mhm. I think the coolest thing, or well, in my head, the coolest thing is like everyone is racing to be that game that eventually breaks the mold and becomes the uh the pinnacle of esports. Well, the beginning, it probably won't be the best. We don't want to see the pinnacle because that'd be kind of depressing.
right,
But like everyone's scrambling to like be that game or invest in that game or play that game that ends up
right.
being the like marquee thing that sets off esports. I don't know what it will be. I mean, obviously it's gonna have to be competitive, but it's also gonna have to be extremely accessible. And that's the problem with gaming these days is that a huge portion of gamers are very casual.
Right,
And I'm not saying
right.
that in a negative way.
Right.
Uh,
No, I agree. 'Cause
and
I
you
don't think
have
people
to,
want to spend that headache like going through and
yeah. And so like
doing all
people who are making these games, not all, but a large portion of games, they are catering to the casual audience because they make up the vast majority of their sales, which is 100% fine. You do you. But like being on the competitive side of gaming, like I want to point fingers sometimes, like, it's demeaning gaming, but that, it's not for me to say. I want to see competitive gaming. I like playing a lot of things competitively.
that.
But as long as the games keep pushing for a more casual audience, will we ever really see uh, a competitive esports blow up? But maybe it needs to be casual. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the
I
game.
think. I mean, I hate to like toot League's horn because I don't think it's like perfect or anything, but they're like they do a pretty good job of like balancing. They always balance the game to the pro league, but like in the casual solo queue level, right, you still see people playing like these champions that never see play in professional because they have a very like niche kit, if you will. They
Hmm.
have a very specific kit, but you would never see it in pro play because it like as soon as like a team is coordinated, like that kit goes to shit, right?
Yes,
But like
yeah.
at the solo queue level, you can have a lot of fun with it, right? And then still at the solo queue level, all the OP picks are still really good. And then there's only probably like two champions I think right now in League of Legends who like are very strictly balanced for competitive, and so they're extremely bad in like their win rate is extremely low in solo queue, but it's like at a 50 in the competitive. So that way, they can keep it kind of balanced. I think that's good enough. I would say out of like 130 plus champions or whatever, if two of them suck in solo queue, or they're not ideal, it's probably exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, it
You
can be
probably
seen as
couldn't
a
ask for
success.
better. Yeah,
Yeah, I think esports has a lot of potential issues to like have to dodge and avoid. But I think what you said earlier is absolutely correct. It's just gonna be trial and error. It's gonna be what eventually just sticks. Like what happens? What's the lucky spark that does it? There's no telling because
yeah. We just need
there's
the
so many
money not to
factors.
run dry before
Exactly. Yeah, we
if,
need to
if the money truly runs dry, as in like if you fail too many times, right, then investors are gone. Like
like
Coke's pulling out,
take Magic
everybody's
the
pulling
Gathering
out.
for example. Like it
Yeah,
it's one of the largest games ever, maybe, probably.
yeah,
They like to boast that a lot. It's in at its core, it is a very casual game. Like most people who play play on the kitchen counters. They play at home, hanging out with buds. They don't play competitively, and they'll probably even never know there's a competitive side to Magic the Gathering, but there is,
Right.
and it's never really had massive success due to the fact that it's extremely competitive and not a very good viewing experience. I think that those two things right there are one of the biggest issues that esports faces is that some games aren't done like PUBG, like Players Unknown Battlegrounds, like they
Yeah.
try so hard to make it an esport because it was so fucking popular, like it just was
Yeah.
so massive, and
Yeah.
the viewing experience is terrible because the people who run these tournaments, who do the camera work, will just be staring at someone in a building reloading or like looking around out the windows, and you'll see the kill feed, people are dying, there's action happening somewhere on the map and you are
Right.
not seeing it because boom,
Right.
there, now you have a poor visual viewing experience. And I'll go and tell you right now, as a personal, I have around like 1100 hours in PUBG. I play almost every day for a couple hours, so it's my main game. I play it
Yeah.
pretty competitively, and I never watch PUBG, ever.
Right.
I
Right.
rarely will ever, if I ever do watch it, I'll watch it if like Shroud streaming, just because his raw talent and aim is incredible, and I find it interesting and entertaining to watch. But on the whole, I don't watch tournaments. There's nothing good in those
Sure.
tournaments.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
it's terrible. So like, I guess the biggest thing too is that getting the right production team to make it a good viewing experience. Overwatch faced the same issue. You have the Owl, the Overwatch League. If
Yeah.
you
I think the issue with these games though also is just like what what's the view of the landscape that would make it like interpretable with ease, like League of Legends is super easy, right? Just give people the same view that they get in game,
exactly.
and like, I can if you just take the fog of war away, I can tell you, now I know what the hell's going on.
hmm
But when you're playing in Overwatch and everybody is like jumping around and
And a
shit, and like
giant ball of colors and
right,
lights.
you're never in the game viewing the game from the top.
No, you're just
You
the only
never
thing you're following is who's winning position, like where's the payload or whatever,
Right, right, exactly. So it's just, yeah, the game was inherently designed. Like the best viewing experience will be like if you can view it in the same way that you're playing the game, right? And
And
it will give you like full or near complete information.
that's why I think I'm trying to think of who does it. I think CS:GO has been doing it to some degree. I don't know if it's on Twitch but other websites. You can just choose your view. Like you'll have like an
Right.
entire dashboard of like you can choose your favorite player and just watch their
Yeah.
perspective.
League of Legends just introduced that this year.
Yeah.
You can now view the whole game from
That's
their point of view.
perfect. Like,
Yeah.
let people choose their viewing experience and have commentary on top of it. Have a main viewing angle that is controlled by camera where the commentators are watching and they're commentating on it, and then be able to choose other stuff and be able to listen to that commentary. I mean, have your commentary and your game audio separated so whenever you choose a different one, you can listen to their game audio while the commentary is playing. Have good commentary. Have I mean, just engage your viewership. That's the biggest thing. Is there's so much happening in gaming that you have to give them
It's it's
variety of
it's
choice.
it's it's a lot of things that still need to be like perfected. I mean, I would say like hype, like building hype for your game is probably the last thing that needs to be worked on because it's probably the thing that people are doing the best, right? We love the
Yes.
game, we see
Yeah.
it being played, and we're just like hell yeah, right? But when it comes to the viewership experience, it needs to go beyond just hype, right? The announcers need to be good, and the game needs to be like you visibly need to be able to understand what's going on in the game at any moment, right? If I
Yes. You need
pause the
someone
game,
who's never seen this shit before to
right?
click on it and be like,
Yeah,
"Oh wow," and then be able to understand what's going on,
right,
like
right,
to
right. I
some
would say I
degree.
would say there's like the test of where if you played 3 games of this, 3 matches of this game, and then I pause the game, you can tell me at least roughly what's happening. If anything is happening in the current game, right? That's
Yeah.
that's what matters. I would say that's an easy test. And Overwatch definitely fails, right? You play like 3 games as like whoever your favorite character is, like the gorilla or whatever, and you have no idea what the
The
hell is going
gorilla.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as the game starts, right, you have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like people are leaving the gate, and like, but everybody's like jumping, everybody's like, they're all over the fucking place, right? That shit would turn people away, I think. You know?
Yeah. It's tough. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and it's gonna be difficult. I want it to succeed. I love gaming, and I to some degree I do love esports. I actually watch a lot of CS:GO, especially whenever like the big tournaments come around, like the majors. I like to
Mhm.
follow the storylines, and I think CS:GO and League have just head and shoulders above a lot of the other competition.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I
But
think it's a combination of all those like nice things we talked about, right? Viewership experience. It also lets you display your skill in a way. I think Dota is probably definitely more skillful than League of Legends at the mechanical and micro level. But I think League is more popular because it's very flashy. You still get to display, a pretty good amount of skill, but the visual element is there to capture the audience, and it appeals to the casual player.
yeah, I don't. It's gonna be tough. I think ultimately they're gonna have to get it in a way where they can advertise to the general audience to make those people tune in. And that's what goes with like normal sports, like football. Like a huge portion of people who watch football have never played football. No, they don't. But
Right,
they know the basic rules. They understand what they're watching. There's good commentary, and it's just something they grew up doing. And I think that's the biggest thing is time. Maybe time's the answer. Is that as we've seen, when I was in high school and younger, is like gaming was still not really. I don't want to say taboo to make it seem bad, but like that was the idea of like if you were a gamer, you weren't considered cool. It wasn't
right,
popular. But now gaming is very much pushing itself into the mainstream quickly. I mean, and I think a lot of it comes from mobile apps, like app gaming. Like people are like, yeah, I play games, and like, okay, yeah, and so they play like mobile gaming, and that's a big portion. But it's
right,
it's just socially acceptable now to play games. It's fine. Like people
right,
don't dismiss
right.
it so quickly.
Sure, sure, sure. I mean, I
So maybe
think I
by the
think we
time our kids have grown up and they've gone through this entire culture of accepting gaming, maybe that's when we'll see enough people to really support
by the time
esports.
my kid grows up, he's gonna be into that VR porn. VR porn is gonna be at the next level, dude. People won't be gaming, dude. They'll just be banging in VR.
It's gonna be like what was that movie Wall-E when they're all like super fat in their chairs, just like
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
things
No,
while they're.
exactly, exactly. I'm like super scared that actually is the future.
I can see it 100%. I mean, especially now that like you don't have to go anywhere for food anymore. Like
Yeah,
there's a huge portion of people who never leave their homes. They just like get their groceries brought to them. They
right,
might
right.
probably work from home,
Yeah,
journalism.
yeah. I mean, I think people. There's probably people who are probably dignified enough to not be like, yeah, I just want to be like a fat fucking slob in a chair.
I mean,
Like,
I don't want to be a
I think
fat
that
slob in
that's
a
the sort of shit that induces depression. Like people see that and they're like, I don't want that for myself.
I don't think I want to be a fat slob in a chair, but if I was reasonably physically healthy, I could live that lifestyle. I could
Yeah.
sit in a really futuristic chair with
Yeah,
like
no,
high
wasn't
def
everybody in
screens.
Wally just like wasn't everybody in Wally just like a fat motherfucker though?
Oh
Like,
yeah, they were all huge because they didn't move. Like they never actually got out of the chairs, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what we don't want. We want the esports to be yeah. Then the real sports are just going to be a rarity, right? And esports be
we're just gonna be
the
waiting for that like not virtual reality as we know it now for VR, but like when you like actually like it's when it becomes like you can control an avatar and stuff like that. That's when
oh
it's gonna
yeah.
get wild.
No,
Like that
that's
movie
no, that's for
Gamer with
sure.
Gerard Butler.
Yeah, then people are gonna have like fucking like orgies and shit, right? Like as like
uh,
they're just gonna have like virtual reality orgies. They're just like, this is not cheating on my wife. I'm just virtual reality in. Like I don't know this person. Could be a girl or could be a guy on
God,
the other end. For all this person knows. It's just like
that's what we
that.
need.
That is fucking pretty legit. I mean, I see it happening if like we really, Earth really gets devolved, or like, the incels get really powerful, and they're just like, we need sexual satisfaction in some way. It's just like, I guess,
I
I guess,
I
I guess it
guess
has to be this.
it has to be this.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I mean, I don't think real sports ever dies because people love seeing how like the physical capabilities of man.
Yeah, it's so big. Like
Yeah.
regular
I mean,
sports.
just if you watch anything, like you watch people do like Cirque du Soleil doing backflips and like like the parkour and stuff, right? You're like amazed because these people do something that the physical body typically can't do. Right?
For
They're exceptional at it.
for me, when it comes to sports, personally, uh, I watch a lot of football. It's my main sport. It's like I don't really watch it for like seeing someone like occasionally you'll see a guy who's like way faster than like the really fast people, and you're like, wow, that dude's incredible. But for the
Right.
most part, for me, it's always been more of a brand loyalty kind of thing. Like
Sure.
the idea
Sure.
that I take a team and I identify with that team. I think that happens a lot in like soccer in Europe, is that like that becomes part of who they are. And I don't know
Right.
if gaming can ever reach that level because
Yeah.
games
Maybe.
rotate so quickly. Like people do feel that way for the clubs and stuff, like for Cloud9 and FaZe.
Yeah.
They'll rep their clothes or whatever, but
I don't
like
think anybody feels like that for FaZe right now, but
yeah,
you know.
dude.
I
Dude,
don't think anybody was like
phase up,
is just like yeah, fuck
phase
Tifue's
down.
butt, dude.
I don't know, but I don't know if anybody will ever feel that kind of same way. They might, but like, I mean, there are definitely people like that. Like when Cloud9 won a major in the last year with Skadoodle, he won
Yeah,
his first major. People like were legitimately like extremely happy and like emotional about that because they wanted him to succeed because they thought he was such a good guy. So
right.
maybe if you get enough people feeling that way, is when we'll see esports.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
I
it's
think
not
it's
much we
always
can do. Maybe it's just the viewership has to do it. They have to.
there definitely isn't much we can. Let's make that clear. There's
Yeah.
barely anything we can do. I
I don't
mean,
know,
we can
man. Me
only
and
tell
you.
people not to hire the lawyer who's gonna like actually be like, oh yeah, sorry, bro. You
Sorry.
should definitely make yourself look fucking moronic and
Yeah, dude.
holy shit, dude. Poor Tfue.
Oh,
I-
from Tfue to esports. We'll see. We'll see
Yeah,
where it goes. I think there's a lot. There's a long way to go, but I'm excited. We'll see. There's a lot of games coming out. A lot of potential there. A lot of people who are looking into gaming now, seriously putting the real money into it.
all right, so here's a question, and this is a pretty philosophical one for our like 20 listeners out there.
All
For
20.
those of you with kids, right? So like, say your kid gets to age 15, 16, right, and he's really good at the game, right? Do you let him just go off, like join a team and make millions? At age 16, maybe let's not say million. Let's say he'll live a very comfortable life and have enough money for like another 10 years if he's not dumb, to live off of. But like he's just like degreeless, doesn't even have a high school diploma, and he'll have to like figure other things out for himself as he's going along, right?
That's
Can
tough.
would you consciously be like, yeah, go ahead?
I think for the extremely intelligent, amazing people who listen to this podcast, they're gonna say no. But I
Yeah,
think the general populace would say yeah. I think. I mean, it's tough to turn down that kind of money. I mean, that's life-changing money for a lot of people
I agree. I
without being
think
able to see the future of it, And especially if they're at that age, that you would technically, as the parents, have the money, right? You would be the sole proprietors of the money. I guess it depends on how the contracts worked out, but you would be able to use the money, right? As their
right,
guardians, parents.
right. So if you're broke as fuck, definitely
So you would say
sacrifice.
yeah, and then maybe hopefully you're smart enough to like take that money and invest it
Yeah,
into their future, and
yeah.
then
You,
let
you,
them
you
get
set up
there.
you set up the what's it called? You set up like a fake contract and give it to your kid. And just be like, this is the contract, and then there's like an extra like 50 or like $200,000 a year that they just don't know about. You just like collect that, pocket
Yeah,
that. Like, I love you, son.
love you, thanks.
You're doing great things out there.
Hey, Dad, how'd you get this new Ferrari?
Yeah, it's like that. Isn't like 50K a year a little low for these? It's like, nah, man. You're just not that good,
That's a good
bro.
question. That's a very good question for people to decide. If you guys are actually listening all the way through to here to the end, I would actually honestly genuinely want to see what your responses are in the comments. This isn't just a comment below type thing. Like I'm interested to see what people would say. That's a good
I want to
question.
see you smash that like button. I want you to take a video and respond to this video with you clicking
Yeah,
the
you
button.
clicking the like button.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
got to make sure the title of that video is for the stories,
Okay. Yeah. Holy shit,
because that's how
man.
we know you're a real listener.
Yeah, that's how we know you're in the in crowd, dude.
Yeah,
That's how we know
yeah.
you're supporting us on Patreon, dude.
All right. Well, this week we talked about esports. Unfortunately, our special guest wasn't able to join us this week. We're hoping he's free next week.
Yeah, we'll,
Uh,
we'll we'll get him next week. We'll get his kid in on the 50K
yeah, and
slate.
he's about to finish. He's on episode 2 of Game of Thrones season 8. So
Okay.
So hopefully he'll get done, and maybe we'll get to revisit a little short segment, and let him give us his fresh feelings on it. As
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
who didn't get to ride the memes, as the episodes were coming out. So maybe he has a completely different take on it. Maybe it's positive, maybe it's negative, maybe
It's
it's in
probably
between.
worse. It's
Maybe it's
probably worse.
absolutely, maybe it's toxic, just complete vitriol.
Yeah. Maybe he just won't show up next.
He
I
just
just can't
decided
go on. I
to go
cannot
on
believe
without it.
this happened.
Well,
We're done. I've lost faith in humanity after that one.
hmm. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys listening, sticking around with us. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch
Yeah,
you next week.
yeah. Speaking of sponsors, which we haven't yet, this video is sponsored by nobody. So,
Nobody. And I'm getting Pizza Hut right after this. So
yeah,
Pizza Hut,
yeah.
if you're listening,
I said Coca-Cola like 6 times.
he did. He did
Yeah,
royalties. I mean, we charge very cheap for that.
yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
Just give me a case of like Coke Zero every
Yeah,
day.
just give me. I'll take regular Coke, and I'll just I'll crack open a cold can right at
Yeah.
the beginning of the podcast, and when we start, so you hear that.
We'll open up with like a high quality video, right? Coke sponsors us legit. We'll open up with like a high quality video.
Exactly. We'll go all
Yeah,
out.
yeah. We aren't cheap, dude. We aren't facing
All right. Till next time, guys and
Yep.
girls.
Yeah.
Have a good one.